Okay, so UFC 270 has recently wrapped up, and I'm going to go through all the fights in which I did preview in my preview for the card. A very, very action-packed card, a very fun card as well. Some a fair mix, some decent fights, some action-packed fights, some crazy fights, and obviously it ended with, I think, one of the most spectacular results I have seen in the octagon for a very, very long time. But before that, I'll get into it. So obviously, I did preview the three fights leading up to the main event. But if you obviously the prelims were quite interesting, some interesting fights. I think there wasn't really much to me that really stood out in my opinion. The one fight that I felt was a bit of a crazy one was the Sean Woodson and Luis Saldana fight, which Saldana had Woodson in all kinds of trouble, hurt him, and then kneed him in the head, and then celebrated like he won. I don't know where he thought the finish was there, but it wasn't like the Piotr Jan one. This was a bit more unintentional, or not intentional, but it was a bit more full on with impact. And that ended in a draw. But that was the one fight that was crazy. You got Lucer beating Fletcher via a decision over the 3 rounds, and he looked very, very good. Fletcher did have him in trouble at times, but he still survived. So, like I said, some pretty decent fights. Overall, nothing too much I would say to scream about in the prelims, but like I said, the main card is what I was looking at, especially the 3 fights. But in the other fights, you had Tyson Pedro KOing Harry Hunsucker in round 1, very, very quick, and it felt like Tyson Pedro really felt like he could have done more and almost wanted to do more, but yeah, you get the finish early, so what happens. And Lucy Padova beating Yanan Wu, which surprised me, to be honest, because I thought we would actually take her, considering how aggressive she is. But got her done in the second round via ground and pound, and a very, very impressive outing, especially from Padova, considering she was cut, I'm pretty sure, from UFC not long ago. So coming back, and she's looked very good, so good for her. But like I said, I preview. I'm going to go through the 3 fights: the Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili, the Paulo Costa Luke Rockhold fight, and the Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards fight. But starting off then with the bantamweight matchup between Aldo and Dvalishvili. Dvalishvili got the decision, and not a fight that people were really loved. Obviously, I thought Aldo would win. I thought he'd keep the end of his jab. I thought his takedown defense would be enough, and his takedown defense was enough. But the pressure for Merab is what really won him this fight. There's never one moment he took a back step. He was always on the pedal, going at Aldo. Aldo has cardio issues, and in the 3rd round he was tiring a little bit. His mouth was open, breathing heavy. So I think personally, I feel Aldo should have sort of tried to keep back off the cage more. I understand it's hard, but not a lot of leg kicks, to be honest, from Aldo. And I felt like Dvalishvili kind of mixed up the striking at times with the rest. It reminded me a little bit of like an old school Kamaru Usman performance, like against Woodley, where he was just marching forward, getting him in the clinch, having him up against the cage, taking him, trying to take him down. I can't actually remember, if my memory goes. I don't actually think Dvalishvili got any. I think it was 16-0. He didn't get any takedowns, so. But I guess for the judges, it's the intent and what he's trying to do that counts. And the intent is very important. And he was trying to take him down and trying to be aggressive, but just wasn't enough, I think, for people to really get excited about. But Dvalishvili is a beast, and it wasn't surprising that he won this fight to me. But I just, I don't know, I thought Aldo would have been a bit more switched on with the jab, with the leg kick. But it is what it is. A good performance from Dvalishvili, though, and interesting on this bantamweight division. What will happen? You know, you got Sean O'Malley and Piotr Jan fighting. I think the winner of that should fight for the belt, but who knows if maybe if somebody can pull out with something, maybe if Dvalishvili can get a fight, maybe get a maybe he could be in there, because he's on a very, very good streak now. I think Dvalishvili, he's beat Aldo this fight, he beat Marlon Moraes, beat Cody Stamann, he beat John Dodson, beat Gustavo Lopez. He's on a very good streak. Lost the number, isn't with me here. I think it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 almost fight streak. I mean, maybe more than that. So it's he's on a very, very good run at the moment, and I'd like to see how he maybe fares against some others. I'd like to see him, I don't know, maybe against Corey Sandhagen or something like that. I don't know, has Sandhagen got a fight coming up, but just somebody like that. I think you need to get him in there with somebody who's how would I describe it? Just someone who's a bit high up the food chain at bantamweight. Personally, I don't really, me personally, I don't know if he could beat the top level guys, but you can only see that by putting him in there with them. So regardless, but a very good from Devalishvili, and yeah, but I don't know, he'll still be there. He's not gone. I think I want to see now Dominic Cruz against Jose Aldo. I think we need to see it. Two legends of the game, and both now lost, and both in the later years. So I think that fight would be the one to make personally, but we'll see what happens with that. But then going on to the co-main, you have Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold. One of the strangest fights I think I have ever seen in my life. So Luke Rockhold, the fight starts. I said Costa would win via KO, actually in the first round, and he was close at times. He did get the win, obviously, over the decision. But in the first round, I figured Costa would be on the pressure, getting in Luke's face. I don't think Luke would. I always thought Luke wouldn't really be able to take the pressure that Costa puts on him. And I was partially right, but so Costa kind of caught Rockhold a few times early on with some shots. Rockhold looked good with some of his kicks, and Costa then took him down for quite a lengthy period of the round, more of a reactive takedown than anything. Because of that, he was on top for a long time. Costa's got very good grappling. I think people underestimate. He just gasses very quickly is his problem. But then he, for the most part, stayed on top, landed some shots. He landed something on the bottom, and I think which busted Rockhold's nose and busted it like badly. To the point, I think where Rockhold just couldn't breathe out of his nose, so he had to breathe out of his mouth, and that's even worse. And they're fighting, above altitude, which makes it even worse. It's in Salt Lake City, so it's kind of above it. And for Rockhold, in the second round, he was just gassing. They were both gassing, don't get twisted, but Rockhold was literally hands on his hips during the fight and before when he was on the stool. And he was just straight up stopping, and the problem that he had is Costa was just kept advancing. I didn't know why Costa would landed a big flurry. Like he was smart by going to the body, because that's going to tire him out even more. To me, he should have just consistently maintained a real good body attack and just kept at it, because I think he would have got Rockhold out of there. And there were times when Rockhold was he was almost fighting in bursts, because there's moments where he would land like a really good little 360 kick. He would land some good body kicks, some leg kicks. There's one moment where he caught Costa flush with a left hand, and Costa ate it to his credit. But again, it was just moments like that. It was like his battery was like getting recharged by like 1%, and he kept landing one thing, but then he just went back to zero again. It was weird. And yeah, Rockhold, I've never seen the fighter for a while be so tired in the octagon, and as well as the fact that he couldn't breathe because I think his nose was broke, he was just all over the place. And I don't think there's ever a moment where Costa wasn't going to win that fight, to be honest. He caught him a few times, Rockhold, but yeah, Costa ate. Costa's got a pretty good chin. The only reason I think he got knocked out by Adesanya is because that shot was just on equilibrium, and just when you get hit there, obviously your legs just completely go out from under you. But regardless, a great win though from Costa. Then obviously the third round did the same thing. Was able to keep the pressure up. Costa kind of just landed a lot of shots on the outside, picking at him, and Rockhold would land a few kicks here and there, but it's pretty much what the whole rhythm of the fight was. Then there was one moment, I remember, I think if Costa took him down, was trying to take the back, was trying to choke him, Rockhold had blood like out of his mouth, out of his nose. It looked rough. He then was on top for the last 10 seconds of the round, and Rockhold did the most disturbing thing I've ever seen and wiped his blood all over Costa, which I don't know why, but I guess his last fight, he decided, let's have it. That was pretty much the story of the fight. Costa got it done. Good win from Paulo Costa. Luke Rockhold announced his retirement, said that he's old and he's too much and he's enough. I don't blame him. I think it's a decent way to go out, because he did show a lot of heart in that fight. And I also thought that it wasn't a bad performance for Rock. It was the best he's looked for ages, but he was just very, very tired is the problem. But I think Costa definitely, don't think anybody can argue that Rockhold would have won that fight. But it's a good way to go out, and I think Rockhold, yes, he's had some ups and downs, but I think he was a fantastic fighter on his day, and he's a legend of the sport. He was a Cage Warriors world champion, as we all know. So I think, personally, I think for Rockhold, I don't think there's really much that he really. I don't think I could look at him and think, that he didn't. Yeah, maybe he didn't fulfill his potential completely. But I don't know. I feel for Rockhold, he definitely could have done more in the sport. But I just think that, he won the belt, and unfortunately for him, I think because he almost won that belt, I think it almost. I said Cage Warriors, I meant Strikeforce. He was Strikeforce world champion, so he was a champion there and champion in the UFC. Won the belt, could have done more with it, but sometimes fighters don't always live up to their potential, but he still had a very good career, and a career that most would have. Rockhold was a champion in Strikeforce, champion in the UFC, was at the top of the sport, was talked about with a lot of things, not a lot of people have that, so I think he has nothing to be ashamed. So it was a great performance from Costa, and Rockhold held his head up high and obviously announced his retirement, and it was a great post-fight speech as well. He was very honest, and I think that's what I liked. But yeah, regardless, a crazy fight, but a great co-main event though. And when it comes to the main event, I'm going to do a whole separate video on that, because that is just something I just have to discuss in length, but an absolute crazy one. But yeah, my second part of the video will be up very shortly.